Welcome back to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in Supergirl. Now we're going to break down all of the nods to the original comic that inspired this film and what all of this means for DC's universe at large. Supergirl is the second film in James Gunn's DCU, and while it is not a direct sequel to last year's Superman, it does take place between the events of Superman and Man of Tomorrow. Supergirl was originally announced in 2023 when Gunn unveiled the first slate for the DCU, Gods and Monsters. Then it was titled Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, sharing the title with the amazing comic that it's based on, but later it was shortened to just Supergirl. But didn't we just see Supergirl? She was in The Flash. That's a different one, buddy. Following this soft reboot, House of the Dragon actress Millie Alcock was cast as the Kryptonian, as we saw in Superman.
Why did you move the door?
Now, as I said, this movie is an adaptation of the book Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow by Tom King and Bilquis Evely. Woman of Tomorrow is a pretty recent addition to the Supergirl mythos, coming out in 2021, but it has quickly become one of the defining stories for Kara Zor-El. But before we get into all of the connections to that comic, let me explain a little bit of Kara's comic history and where we last saw her in the DCU. Supergirl first appeared way back in 1959 in Action Comics 252, and she was created by Otto Bender and Al Pastino. That comic introduced us to a Kara that is pretty different from the one we see in this movie. Originally, Kara was very similar to her cousin, taking on a human alias as Linda Lee and then Supergirling in secret. Then, during DC's Crisis on Infinite Earth storyline, Kara was killed off. Now at the time, people felt that Supergirl was essentially a female Superman, and not many writers took the chance to expand on the character. During this time, a shapeshifter named Matrix from a pocket universe arrived on Prime Earth. There, she took the form of Supergirl and briefly worked with Superman to stop Kryptonian criminals back in her universe. However, after a while, she became disillusioned, believing that she was Clark and she almost harmed the Kents. Because of this, she fled off into space, and once again, the DC universe was Supergirl-less. That was until Jeff Loeb's Superman Batman run in 2003, when Kara Zor-El finally returned, but this time she was her own character. This version of Kara has evolved over the years, but it's in Woman of Tomorrow that we really get to see how heavily her past is weighing on her. Despite a couple of retcons, her backstory has mostly remained the same. It's the exploration of how she's dealt with her backstory that has made her such an interesting character, especially in contrast with Superman. And not only do we see that in this movie, but even from the minute she first appeared in Superman.
Thanks for watching him, bitch!
Kara has a far more tragic experience of Krypton's destruction than Clark does, and the way that she's handling that trauma is a defining part of her character. Last we saw her in Superman, she was going off to planets with red suns to party. Kara is still in the middle of dealing with her grief, all the while trying to be a superhero. Despite how damaging her coping mechanisms may be, she continues to push through her own struggles to come to the aid of others, albeit reluctantly.
Congratulations, you wore me down.
The movie begins with the new logo for the DCU we've seen in every project so far. We open up inside of Kara's ship, and immediately the production design for this movie was off the charts. Although we don't see the interior of Kara's ship in Woman of Tomorrow, the space is exactly how you would have imagined a young adult's cluttered apartment would look like. I love the design of this ship. It looks not only functional, but lived in. We see Kara fix something that's in a repair hatch on the floor, much like in the Millennium Falcon. This is her ship through and through, and it's clear she spends an awful lot of time here. After Krypto knocks over a couple of bottles, we see a leftover Daily Planet newspaper thrown onto the ground. The headline reads, "Superman saves town from nuclear reactor explosion." But down below we see a much smaller article about Supergirl rescuing cats. Now, her saving some kittens could be a reference to her cousin doing the same thing back in the original Superman film, a scene that oddly enough ended with child abuse.
Man swooped at his guy and gave him to. Haven't I told you to stop telling lies?
However, this is also showing how she's not really admired as much as Clark. Sure, she saved some cats, but he saved a whole town. It's no wonder that at this point in her life, she'd rather be anywhere but Earth, and we'll see her express that sentiment more later on. Krypto fittingly uses it as a pee-pee pad, to which Kara says,
"You managed to get most of it on the paper this time."
Remember, Krypto was a troublemaker in the Superman movie, and Kara has not done anything to train him since then. Now, Krypto's creation in the DCU was based on James Gunn's dog Ozu, who he adopted while he was writing Superman. Ozu ended up destroying the laptop that Gunn was writing the first draft on, and he was then inspired to add Krypto to the script. Also, not for nothing, James Gunn told us that his dog Ozu freaks out whenever he sees Doug on screen. I'm famous? You kind of are. This newspaper also has a neat reference to comic artist John Romita Jr. right here, who became the penciler for Superman in 2014 and worked on Superman Year One. The song playing during this scene is This Summer by Sleigh Bells, and the lyrics fit Kara's current lifestyle perfectly. It is about about how you don't know when your life will end, so you might as well just have fun, but to an extreme and almost numbing extent. And that's exactly what we see Kara doing throughout the beginning of this film. After she gets up, Kara watches a video message from her cousin on her space computer. Something I loved about this film was how it mixed familiar objects like computers or jukeboxes, but then added an alien twist. It's recognizable as a computer screen, yet it has a joystick, some red glowing buttons, and symbols on its keyboard. Next to the computer, we see a box of Milk-Bones treats. Treat? Yes, and it's a nod to the collaboration ad that DC released. Wee, wee, wee! What you say? Her sink is also full of dishes, and there's what I presume to be a bowl of microwave noodles on her counter. All in all, it's a very perfect apartment for a 23-year-old. Clark says, "Okay, don't have too much fun." And later adds, "I'm worried you're not gonna find your people." Like he expressed in Superman, he has concerns with the amount of partying that Kara does in her life. He feels like Kara won't ever be able to find her place on Earth if she keeps going off to other planets. However, that's the core of the conflict between them. Kara won't ever find her place on Earth. It's completely alien to her. While Earth is all Clark knows, Kara doesn't feel at home here. Krypton still feels like her home. So no matter how much Supergirling Kara does on Earth, she will always feel alien. Kara then hangs up on Clark and goes to pilot her ship. We again see how lived in the ship is, with duct tape slapped on the top of the seat and its edges framed. In the back of the cockpit, we also see a cute photo of Krypto taped on the wall. Now when Kara sits down, Krypto hops up in her lap, just like he did to Lois in Superman.
No, dog, I really need you.
So this shows us where he got the habit from. Kara is wearing these huge sunglasses, another indicator of her ongoing hangover from her birthday week celebration. She also has a Blondie t-shirt, a nod to the song Call Me used for the trailer of the film, and she's also wearing this trench coat. In both her last appearance in Superman and in the comic book Woman of Tomorrow, she wears a similar trench coat. So she ventures off to a planet with a red sun called Holzer, named after Brittany Holzer, one of the editors on the Woman of Tomorrow comic. She is actually the editor that Tom King created for convincing him to use Supergirl in this True Grit allegory, but more on that later. And this is also not the only nod we'll see to the creators, as we'll touch on in just a sec. The exterior of her ship is also identical to the one from the comics. Now we don't get to see much more of it in the books, but it has the same triangular frame and top wing. Kara chooses Holzer to party on specifically because, like Clark explained in Superman,
because of our metabolism, you can't get drunk on a planet with a yellow sun.
Her Kryptonian biology does not allow her to metabolize alcohol normally on planets with yellow suns. So, in order to party like she wants to, she jets off to red sun planets. The bar she ends up at is the same one from the comic, called the Whale Tower. There, she lives up to her title as the Woman of Steel and takes the drinks from this guy who's dozing off. Kara and Krypto then enjoy crowd surfing at a killer alien rave. The alien designs in this movie are so cool. This is our first official look at the universe part of the DCU. We visit 5 planets in this film, and in this rave shot alone, we can point out at least 10 different designs of creatures. Now, despite the shift in aesthetics from the comic, the film still carries the same unique spirit that Woman of Tomorrow was so lauded for. Hard cut to the next day, and Kara is feeling it. Girl, I've been there. Waking up on the messy floor of her spaceship from underneath the blanket, she says,
"Oh, I need a yellow sun like now."
Which is exactly what we theorized would be her hangover cure.
What do you mean?
Well, like how red suns depower her, yellow suns repower her. In the presence of a yellow sun, Kryptonians gain incredible powers and heal at an extraordinary rate. Kara plays fetch with Krypto in space, which we've seen Clark do with him in the comic All-Star Superman. And this is also how Krypto saved the day in Superman.
Krypto, get the toy.
So when Krypto returns the ball that Kara threw, he rams into her at full speed, mirroring their reunion from Superman.
Okay, well, this is why he has behavioral issues.
This opening is so perfect because it already sets up how important Krypto is to her, how he's literally her only friend. Within the first 15 minutes of Superman, Clark has already spoken to Lois, Jimmy, Ma, Pa, the Superman robots, and the other Daily Planet staff. By 15 minutes into Supergirl, Kara has only spoken to Krypto. He really is the only person she has left.
Hey person, guess what? It's payday today and I got you a present.
No, what did you get me? Doug, you got me a slab pack. Guys, this is a slab pack of superhero cards from Arena Club. They're the sponsor of this video. These are real graded cards delivered straight from digital to my front door. Now this one is for superheroes, but they also have Pokemon, baseball, basketball, football, and you name it. Okay, so let's open my slab pack, and it is... Oh, wow, this is a newer one. Okay, so this is a Thor 2025 Topps Chrome Marvel, oh my God, mint condition. And give me just a second to look up the value of this. Okay, I'm seeing this card for sale up to $2,000 on some sites. This is incredible. I just love this. It's the same rush from my childhood when I would open up a new pack of Marvel cards. These are actual real cards, by the way, so here's how it works. Arena Club lets you open up digital packs starting at just $25, but with real graded cards inside, including grails that are worth 20 times the pack price. Then you can keep them in your digital showroom to save space or have them delivered to your home. Arena Club also drops specialty packs all week long for sports and TCG. Every drop lasts for 48 hours or until inventory is gone, whichever comes first. So to get 20% off your first slab pack or card, just go to arenaclub.com/ScreenCrush and use the code ScreenCrush. The link is below. Get started today. Now back to what I was saying. Back on Evely, we see the Knoll House, which looks similar to its comic counterpart. This opening planet was also filmed in Scotland, like a lot of other scenery we'll point out later on. The brigand ship then docks in their yard as Krem and his gang descend upon the house. Now we get our first look at Krem of the Yellow Hills, and he looks nothing like he does in the comics, and yet it still works. In the comic, Krem's design is still mostly human, aside from his purple eyes. Here, however, the guy looks insane. His face is covered in dots, scars, he has golden eyes. He still has his orange hair, but it's braided down his back instead of cropped short. His sword and bow are swapped for a battle axe and a crossbow, and his leather pants are upgraded to a total steampunk pirate Viking makeover. His armor has a metal spine running down its back and a metal rib cage with what looks like teeth lining it. I like that even though he looks entirely different, he still has the same air of medieval mysticism that we saw in the comic. The great thing about Woman of Tomorrow is that it combines so many genres: medieval fantasy, space opera, sci-fi, western adventure, all into one story. So this gives the creators liberty to make design choices like this. Krem is still medieval in design, just way more hardcore. Now, this whole interaction is entirely different from the source material. In the comic, Ruthie explains how Krem stayed with the Knolls for shelter before betraying her father and attacking him. In the comics, her father was just an unarmed rock farmer, but here, he is Elias Knoll, a known swordsmith. He is played by Ferdinand Kingsley, who previously portrayed another DC character, Hob Gadling, in The Sandman. He shows Krem a blade that he crafted made of the strongest material, which I'm theorizing might be nth metal. In the comics, nth metal is the second strongest metal in the universe, and it's what Hawkgirl's mace is made out of. Now, while it's not yet confirmed what the material of the mace is, we've seen Hawkgirl use it in Superman, so it's not unlikely that this sword could also be nth metal. He then asks for some of the family's pie, and you'll notice Krem is eating a lot through this film. It shows his savagery, how he always consumes other people's belongings and does nothing to create something new. After Ruthie's brother interrupts Krem threatening to the parents, the brigand kills them all aside from Ruthie. Now, the way he kills Ruthie's father with the blade is the same as in the book, but the rest of the circumstances are different. In Woman of Tomorrow, Ruthie is one of 7 children, and her father is the only one to die. However, Gillespie and Nogueira decided to leave Ruthie as the lone survivor. Ruthie then buries her family and starts on her quest for vengeance.
I'm vengeance.
Which brings her to Whale Tower, where Kara is once again celebrating her 23rd birthday. Kara is still in the same clothes from earlier, although now she's carrying her MP3 player and has headphones around her neck. This, of course, felt very reminiscent of Guardians of the Galaxy Star-Lord. We find out that Kara is using this MP3 player to block out the overwhelming sounds of her super senses, and this is very similar to how Star-Lord used his Walkman to shut out his own pain and keep himself attached to his home. In both cases, these aliens use music to shut out their new home worlds and ground themselves in their past. While drinking copious amounts of alien alcohol, she promises Krypto
23 will be the best year yet.
Before pondering whether or not this planet could be home, which is the recurring theme of this movie. Kara's whole arc is about trying to find a home and what home means to someone who's had theirs taken away. This has also been a common theme in the DCU in general.
Krypto. Take me home.
James Gunn has made it clear that he wants to do all of these characters in the cinematic universe right, and bring them home to their best iterations. Kara then plugs her intergalactic MP3 player into the jukebox and starts playing Catch These Fists by Wet Leg. The song is about, well, exactly what the title says, Catch These Fists, which is what Kara is about to say to that one guy.
It's not too late to not be a jerk.
Kara's dance party is then interrupted by Ruthie, who announces that she needs help tracking down the killer of her family, and in return they will get her father's finest blade. And I loved how they did the cliche music stop when somebody raises their voice, but it was just Krypto unplugging the jukebox. Now, this is also similar to Ruthie's actions in the comics, although she only sought the help of one mercenary at the bar. However, this is where she and Kara meet in the book. And like in the comic, Ruthie is immediately dismissed and an alien steals the sword from her. Kara then goes after the guy, which of course causes a fight. This whole scene is pulled from Kara's introduction in the Woman of Tomorrow comic. When she does get cut during the fight, she says, "Hey, I'm bleeding," just like her reaction in the book. She easily whoops the guy's ass despite being on a red sun planet and then returns the sword to Ruthie. When Kara answers a call from Clark the next day, he says,
I'm worried you're not gonna find your people.
And then Kara replies,
Yeah, well, that's the thing, Clark.
Now this is one of the major differences between the super cousins. Clark loves people. He is surrounded by them. He has his parents, Jimmy, Lois, and now the Justice Gang. But Kara just has Krypto. Her dog has been with her since the moment she lost everything. Kara does not see the view of returning to what is in her view an alien planet like Earth when her home is there with her. And guys, to celebrate the DCU, the team and I had a blast designing these new parody shirts like this absolutely kick-ass Lobo biker tee in the style of a biker vest. We also have Krypto as Snoopy destroying his own doghouse, Supergirl as Rosie the Riveter saying "don't fuck with my dog," and Kara reimagined as a Barbie redesign. This is along with some of our old favorites like G.I. Robot in the style of G.I. Joe, the bird blindness PSA, give a hoot about bird blindness, and where's the dog? As well as Peacemaker as Charlie Brown and the Peace Cycle as the Akira Cycle. Remember, store members at our $5 tier get an additional 15% off at our merch store site-wide, and shopping our store really does help out our channel. Thank you for helping us, and the links are below. Her call is cut short when, just like in the comics, Ruthie decides to follow her to the ship and requests that she aid in the hunt for Krem. Kara says that Ruthie is on glue, which has a double meaning here. Kara is saying that Ruthie is acting a little zany, on glue, and also won't leave her alone because she's stuck on her. Now while the two argue back and forth, Krem and his merry band of pirates come across Kara's ship. This gets Krypto's attention and he chases after Krem, who has made himself at home inside the ship. He then shoots Krypto before hijacking Kara's ship.
I thought he was Kryptonian. Oh, this poor puppy.
Well, he is Kryptonian, but remember, this planet that Kara was on for her birthday has a red sun, just like Krypton did. So if she can get her, so can Krypto. Notice the weapon that Krem uses when he raises it at Krypto, it opens into a crossbow and fires a steel arrow. Again, Krem is still medieval, he's just tweaked to fit the grungier tone of the film. He's also far more evil in this version. He's already made himself at home on the ship, eating Kara's cereal when he shoots Krypto. This is opposed to comic Krem, who shot Krypto when he was defending Kara. This Krem is ruthless. He has no morals and blindly wields his weapon, and we see more of his depravity later on. The three of them go to a healer who tells Kara that she has only 3 days to cure Krypto, and that
the Brickens carry the antidote on that person.
Now this is slightly different from the comic. In issue 2 of the book, after Kara gets Krypto to a mender, she is informed that in order to treat Krypto, she needs the original poison on the arrow, as the poison was not actually that harmful to people. This change from a couple of weeks to 3 days puts more of a time crunch on their journey and makes every choice Kara makes feel all the more dire. She tells Krypto,
"You cannot give up on me."
Kara already watched her first home slowly die, and so she can't bear to go through that again if she loses Krypto. He's the only one left who understands her, and Clark once expressed a similar sentiment in Action Comics number 500. In that issue, while touring the Superman Pavilion at the World's Fair, he talks about how Krypto changed his life. He says, "I could share with him things I desperately needed to share, like the sound that bullets make when they bounce off of your skin." Before Krypto, Clark felt lonely, just like he is a cure for Kara's loneliness in this film. And by the way, I want to point out, I'm pretty sure this location where they park the ship is Glencova in Scotland. Now, when Kara goes to hunt down Krem, Ruthie once more tries to follow, arguing that Krem needs to be killed. And while Kara agrees, she tells Ruthie the same thing from the comic. Don't kill people, it's bad. Kara then waits at an intergalactic bus stop, just like her and Ruthie did on the cover of Woman of Tomorrow issue 2. Kara takes out a pocket watch that we later find out was given to her by her father and marks out 3 days. Her still holding onto this watch symbolizes her inability to move on past Krypton. She is forever stuck in the time of that planet. And when she sees the photo of Krypto on the inside, we get a flashback to their first meeting. Back on Argo City, we see a Kryptonian funeral procession. Now the white robes they're wearing are similar to something we've seen in the comics. In Adventures of Superman issue 500, Pa Kent had a vision of Clark in the afterlife where the Kryptonians were trying to take him away, and they were wearing similar white robes during their funeral march. And the Kryptonian in the casket is Kara's mother, Allura, who was among the first to die during Argo City's deterioration. During the procession, Krypto runs over to Kara, and we get our first look at David Krumholtz as Kara's father, Zor-El. You might recognize Krumholtz from the Santa Claus or 10 Things I Hate About You, but more on Zor-El in a bit. So it seems like they have altered Krypto's origin in this universe, which I don't mind. In the comics, Krypto was initially Clark's dog. It wasn't until more recent years that Kara was seen as his owner. But this change works much better for the story being told. Krypto came to Kara during a moment of immeasurable grief and loss. Her home was just destroyed. All the people she knew and loved are dead. And out of nowhere, this little ball of hope comes racing up to her. This is her new chance at a home, which she says as much.
There's no home without you, buddy.
Now is the first time since that fateful day that she has been completely and utterly alone. The Hall Free, aka the Wormhole Express, then stops to pick up Kara, and it looks pretty similar to its design in the comics. We also get a cameo from none other than Seth Rogen, who voices the little alien guy helping to operate the bus.
Hey, Seth Rogen, what up, man?
The alien patrons on the bus are just as diverse as they were at the rave. Aside from the color differences side by side, the film and comic go toe-to-toe with their odd creature designs. Ruthie, of course, ends up following Kara to the bus and gets into a scuffle with an alien, which Kara quickly sorts out by speaking the other alien's language. Kara is canonically multilingual in the comics, and she's also fluent in English, Kryptonian, and all of Earth's languages. I also want to point out something that disappointed me. The alien attacks Ruthie because she placed her bag at her feet, and I thought during the big fight scene, one of the pirates would have put a bag down at the alien's feet, prompting her to attack again. It just would have been funny. Now the bus is then attacked by these Scolarian raiders, which is a departure from the Woman of Tomorrow book. So in the comic, the bus is attacked by a metal-eating Carpain dragon. Supergirl comes to everyone's aid by taking some red kryptonite and turns into a phoenix to defeat the dragon. Here, instead, they have the bus raided by Scolarians. Now, the Scolarians are an all-female group of space pirates that first appeared in Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes number 233. They attack unsuspecting outposts and labs to get their high-tech equipment, so it makes sense that they would attack the Wormhole Express. Despite not having a huge space dragon, this scene was a lot of fun. When Kara first confronts them, she pulls a Star-Lord.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know how this machine worked.
Before the fight really kicks into gear. The Scolarians use some type of teleportation device that makes this fight a blast to watch. This also isn't something that we would normally see in a Superman film or any other marquee hero movie. The DCU has really allowed their creatives to lean into their own styles and unique visual choices for their own films, regardless of being part of a connected universe. It also reminded me a lot of the final fight with Ghost and Ant-Man and the Wasp, and how eventually Kara used their own phasing abilities against them to win. So this works in Kara's favor until they figure out her game and shoot her out of the airlock into space without a helmet.
Yeah, but she's an alien, so what's the problem?
Well, depending on the continuity, nothing. But here, Kara was still regaining her strength after being on a red sun planet. So she's about as vulnerable as a human is to outer space conditions. But normally, Kryptonians are fine in space.
Kal-El, we're Kryptonian! We don't need these.
There's a couple iterations in the comics that have Superman hold his breath while he's in space or use some type of oxygenator. After drifting close enough to the yellow sun, Kara fully recharges and kicks some Scolarian ass. The fight scenes in this film were so well done. They are dynamic and quick that it feels like you're flying with Kara, especially if you see it in IMAX. So when she rescues the bus from the raiders, we hear a little hint of the original John Williams Superman theme from the '78 film. And we hear it again a bit later during one of Kara's hero moments. Now, with the bus back in working order, they head to a rest stop at Ann Murph's asteroid, just like they do in the comics. There's a lot of slashy advertisements plastered all over the rest stop, this one looking like an alien can of Coca-Cola. Now, in the comic, Ann Murph's is an actual asteroid, but here it's only asteroid in its name. When Ruthie and Kara enter the rest stop, Kara gets some alien popcorn from this slug-like creature. And while we do see them get some unfamiliar food at the rest stop in the comics, it's nowhere near as interesting as this. The design at the rest stop continues to follow the familiar yet alien aesthetics of the other locations so far. There are shopping carts, but also space guns, magazines on the wall, but also alien pooping food. It's very Star Wars in its set design. In fact, this story reminds me a lot of the bodega on Coruscant from the show Andor. Now, Ruthie did see Kara fight the first asshole who tried to take her father's sword, but this fight scene was the first time she's actually seen Kara use her powers to their fullest extent. Ruthie is in complete awe and asks,
"Why couldn't you do that on my planet?"
See, Kara originally went to Ruthie's planet to keep the super aspect of her life on the down low so she can just be a normal 23-year-old girl. Kara doesn't care about being Supergirl right now. It seems like every time she tries, she's just compared to her cousin. But then again, when she's not Supergirl, Clark is disappointed in her.
You know, I'm just worried that you're not going to find your stride here if you keep going off-world all the time, Kara.
Now, when Kara interrogates the Scolarians, they tell her that Krem is on planet Bilus. This planet was created for the film and named for the incredibly talented artist of the Woman of Tomorrow comic, Bilus Evely. They then reveal that Krem deals in taking young brides, and Bilus is his base of operations. Bilus also takes the place of Maypole during this arc of the story. In issue 3 of the comic, Kara and Ruthie travel to the town of Maypole, which is a quiet city full of blue people. But it's revealed that the planet planet used to contain blue and purple people, but the blues considered the purples to be inferior and forced them to all live in a place called Purple Town. Long story short, the Barbando brigands then invaded and slaughtered all of the purples, which then led them to recruit Krem into their ranks. But since Krem is already the leader of the brigands, they've opted for a different and really darker story on Bilus. While on their way to a bar on Bilus, Ruthie begins to ask questions about Kara after not even knowing her name earlier on the bus.
Do others on your planet have powers like you?
Something that I thought was interesting is that after the initial flashback, Kara never refers to Clark as Kal, which she frequently does in the comics. Although I figured Clark probably insisted on being called Clark as his connection with Krypton isn't nearly as strong as Kara's. They also say that she is 10 years younger than her cousin, confirming that Clark is 33. This is also a departure from the comics. Kinda sorta.
Person.
See, Supergirl gets a little confusing sometimes, but in the comics, she was born 15 years before Clark was, give or take. Then she either stayed on Argo City or was sent off at the same time, but then got stuck in orbit. Regardless, neither are true for the DCU, where instead she was born after Clark was when she was born on Argo City. Ruthie then asks why she's Supergirl if her cousin gets to be Superman. Now, lore-wise, there's already a Superwoman. Several, actually. It's the alias used not only by Lois Lane when she gets powers, but by Lucy Lane and Lana Lang. When Kara and Ruthie enter a bar, Kara confronts this alien for information on Krem.
Do you have any information on the brigands?
It's kind of a reverse encounter to the one Kara has at the bar in the comic. Here she offers to arm wrestle for information or for her and Ruthie should she lose. Now, we have seen Kara arm wrestle in the comics before, actually even against the main man himself, Lobo, who we'll see here shortly. When another, more grotesque alien takes the former's place, Kara easily breaks his arm. So immediately the ruffians within the bar hold her a laser point, which she says,
Okay, this does not look like this is gonna end well for you guys.
Which is pulled directly from her introduction in the Woman of Tomorrow comic. She asks them,
Anybody want to leave? No?
Which reminded me of another hero's warning before a beatdown, Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
So then she tells Ruthie to sit down in the corner. Despite Kara immediately gearing up to fight, she'll always make sure that those she's protecting are safe and out of harm's way. There's also a great line in My Adventures with Superman that describes exactly that.
I like how Superman protects us, but I love how you fight for us.
And she tells the band to keep playing.
Keep playing. You know, it's like the Titanic.
A reference to, of course, the sinking of the Titanic. On April 15th, 1912, as the Titanic sank during its maiden voyage, violinist Wallace Hartley led the band in playing Nearer, My God, to Thee as the boat went under. It was meant to comfort passengers as lifeboats were loaded, so Kara could be saying it here either sarcastically or as a way to comfort Ruthie as she unloads on all of these scoundrels. The lounge singer then switches from singing The Girl from Ipanema to Cheek, which makes me wonder, is the singer from Earth, or are these just widely known songs? Kara does call English the common tongue when she talks to the barkeep, so maybe common tongue songs are known galaxy-wide. Or did Earth culture slowly seep into the broader galaxy through Terran Green Lanterns or other heroes? Or could it be that The Girl from Ipanema was actually written by aliens and then brought to Earth? Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, during the fight, we mainly focus on Ruthie and her reaction to the violence going on around her. Very similar to how Spielberg focuses on Dakota Fanning during a similar scene in War of the Worlds. So this shows us that even though Ruthie seems prepared for this vengeful plot against Krem, she really is just a child, like she says in the book. Supergirl's brawl against the bar patrons wakes up a sleeping alien who's been lurking in the background this whole time, Lobo. So Momoa looked incredible as the Zarian bounty hunter. He looks like he was pulled right out of the comic with his classic chain-wrapped arm, red eyes, and face markings. He even has a chained grenade around his neck, just like he did in Lobo Unbound. Now, it makes total sense for Lobo to be introduced in this bar, as that's where he's been introduced in several Superman comics over the years. It's also similar to Aragorn's introduction in Lord of the Rings, and it mirrors Supergirl's intro in the book. Now look, Lobo is not in the Woman of Tomorrow comic, although he was originally supposed to be.
That book began as me pitching a Lobo Supergirl book, and it was my editors who were like, no, take Lobo out and make Supergirl the Rooster Cogburn character.
Like I said earlier, when Tom King pitched this True Grit in Space idea, they suggested a slight change. Make Kara the Rooster Cogburn of the series and leave Lobo out. But man, am I glad they added him back in. Momoa was built for this role, and I'm so happy that he gets to go from this to this. and ultimately, he still ends up mirroring a True Grit character. However, he's more like LaBouffe than Rooster Cogburn. So when Kara recognizes the bounty hunter, she says,
"He's an immortal with a god complex,"
which is an apt way to describe him. First appearing in 1983's Omega Men #3, Lobo is the last Cesarian. Not because of any horrific disaster like the explosion of Krypton, but rather because he hunted down every last one of his own people. Lobo then tells the bartender that he's
looking for a brigand, goes by the name of Drom Baxton.
And Drom Baxton is the second in command of the brigands. We even hear him call Drom a bastich, one of his classic insults from the comics.
These bastiches are fakes!
He then asks another question, this time in an alien dialect. Now in the comics, Lobo is also multilingual. Being that he's the universe's best bounty hunter, he has to be able to speak in any given language. He's even stated that he can speak 17,897 different languages from across the universe. Now when Ruthie overhears that Lobo is a skilled hunter, she immediately wants his help, which Kara shoots down. This is a little ironic, considering that in the comics, when Kara lost Hal Jordan in space, she actually hired Lobo for help. They were actually a blast together, and Kara got all Lobo'd out with a biker jacket and a choker. Lobo leaves after Kara annoys him.
You're hurting my head.
And the bartenders lie to Kara and Ruthie, telling them that they know someone who will get them to Krem. Now while waiting for this mysterious person, Kara and Ruthie have another heart-to-heart, and this time about Kara and Clark. Kara calls her cousin a nerd, in theme with her usual nicknames for him.
Bitch!
She also says,
"He sees the good in everyone."
And this is similar to what Lois said about Clark.
You trust everyone and think everyone you've ever met is, like, beautiful.
This sentiment is brought up several times throughout the comic. In issue 2, Kara says that she sees everything in a very solemn way. Clark tends to look at the good in the situation, that there is always a way, but Kara feels burdened by the weight of truth. In her 23 years, Kara has seen horrors beyond anyone's imagination, and she can't sugarcoat life, at least not to Ruthie. When Ruthie asks about Krypton's destruction, Kara says,
"Krypton didn't die in a day. The gods are not that kind."
Which is a direct line from Woman of Tomorrow, but also very interesting. Again, this depends on the continuity, but Krypton was created as a monotheistic culture, with Ra being the sole god of Krypton. So it's interesting that Kara would say gods, plural. This leads right into a flashback of Argo City's creation and its eventual decay. We see the planet Krypton on the day of its destruction. The planet has red trees, which are pulled right from the Silver Age of Krypton's Scarlet Jungle. Alora and Zor-El, Kara's parents, discuss the impending doom of their planet, mentioning how the core is going to explode due to overconsumption. Now, this is the cause for destruction in most of the comics as well as the films, but there is another reason for Krypton's explosion that could tie right into Man of Tomorrow, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Zor-El tells Alora that the Council didn't listen to him despite his and Jor-El's warnings, exactly like in the 1978 Superman film.
"This planet will explode within 30 days.
Jor-El, be reasonable."
Zor-El, like in the comics, was able to create Argo City by bubbling some of the atmosphere on an asteroid. His brothers Zor-El and Lara didn't join them in the bubble, with Alora saying perhaps the funniest line in the whole movie. When discussing Kal-El, she says, "That sweet boy your brother called a conqueror of worlds," which is of course a reference to the hashtag super harem controversy from the last film.
Dude, you got a secret harem?
Another major change from the comic is that Kara is born 8 years after Argo City's creation. In Woman of Tomorrow, she experiences some of the worst trauma of her life during the day of the explosion. The beginning of it happened while she was in school, killing all of her peers around her. This change, however, adds even more depth to Kara's grief over Krypton. Argo City really is all she's ever known. There was no before Argo City for her. It was just that and then nothing. We see the weeks building up to Alora's death, with the radiation from the kryptonite poisoning soil seeping into her veins. However, this time the kryptonite wasn't irradiated by a yellow sun, but rather it's just a rock within Krypton. The planet turning against the people is exactly what happens in the comics. Regardless of how much work Zor-El or even Kara puts into saving those they love in Argo City, its own environment was always going to kill its people. The kryptonite poisoning also looks identical to how it did in Superman after Clark was captured by Lex. With everyone dying around them, Zor-El decides the only thing he can do to save his daughter, who is his last hope, is to build a rocket and send her off the planet. He finds his brother's schematics for the rocket ship to build her an ark, just like her cousins. So Zor-El tries to get her to accept the idea of a new home on Earth, again bringing up the theme of finding a home and trying to replace the one you've lost. Kara vehemently argues against it and says such a heartbreaking line, "I'm only one tiny life." And right there gets to the heart of Kara's grief and anger. She has survivor's guilt like no one else. Sure, Clark was also sent off Krypton to survive, alive, but he never had to witness those around him die off. He wasn't the one person picked to escape total destruction. But Zor-El assures Kara that she is not just one life. She is his life and her mother's life and all of those that came before them. And during this, Kara's mother delivers her final words. You don't have to be nice, but be good. Just like in the comic. The silver Kryptonian suit that Kara is wearing could also be a reference to the Kryptonian suits in Superman 78, who wore a similar garb. As Kara is launched away into space, we get a final view of Krypton from within Argo City, and the building looks identical to the ones that Evilly depicted in the comic book run. Back in the present day, Kara and Ruthie are put in peril again when the barkeepers reveal the sham. Kara is drugged, adequately nerfing her powers against the swarm of incoming brigands, but also she's still able to hold her own since this is a yellow sun planet. The barkeepers had planned on trading both Ruthie and Kara for their own daughter that Krem has stolen, and this plot is all very similar to another female-led superhero film, Black Widow. That film also features girls being taken away by creepy men that are eventually rescued by badass women who are working through their trauma. When Krem and Kara meet face to face, she headbutts him so hard that some of his facial piercings get embedded into Kara's face. She then grabs Ruthie and jumps out of the building, another similarity to their time on Maypole. While there, Kara and Ruthie get shot at while sleeping, and Kara saves the two of them by jumping out of a window. Now, the fight then spills out into the town, causing Lobo Baby to get involved. He's after his own bounty, Drum Baxton, and not there to help out Supergirl.
Aren't you the ditz from that dive bar?
Funny, that's what I've been calling you.
Touché.
He uses his claw hook while riding his space hog, and it just looks like the comic book come to life. So while Kara is busy with the other brigands, Ruthie closes in on Krem, who is busy chasing after an escaped bride. Supergirl stops Ruthie from striking Krem, but isn't able to save the escaped girl nor her family. Not only does it prove how depraved of a villain Krem is, but it also reminds the audience and Kara that there are actual stakes in this film. As much as Kara is on this trip for Krypto, there are real lives that can easily be lost as collateral damage. Ruthie and Kara then have a shouting match with one another. Ruthie is angry with Kara for not letting her take out Krem, but Kara is not willing to let her cross that line. They're a mirror for one another in this story. Both of them are grieving, they've just lost their worlds, but they are at different stages in the grieving cycle. Ruthie feels as though if she avenges her family, she will feel right again, while Kara is already nearing acceptance. She knows that she can't change what happened, but she can hold on to it as long as she can, despite how unhealthy that might be for her. Krem and the brigand ship, the Bonnie Prince Charlie, then disappear in a blast of white energy. Now, in the comics, the ship had more of a classic pirate feel to match the brigands, but here it's more steampunk industrial in its design. The way they escape is very similar to the Mordru globe that Krem uses in the comics in order to teleport Kara and Ruthie away with. Which would make sense. Krem sent them to Barenton with the Mordru globe, and that's exactly where they're about to wind up. After they escape, Kara immediately flies up into space and screams her heart out. Now, this is ripped straight from the comics. During their time on Maypole, Kara witnesses a brutal massacre that the brigands left in their wake. She then shoots off into the sun, where she finally allows herself to scream and let go of all of the trauma she's picked up on this journey. Here she does the same, but in space.
No one can hear you scream.
And this is a perfect metaphor for Kara's life. She has spent her entire life in agony, mourning her home, but never makes any big deal about it. She just buries the pain deep down on red sun planets. She slams back down onto the planet and then turns back to one of the patrons from the bar earlier, calling him Squidward, a reference to the visually similar character from SpongeBob SquarePants, and it's also a joke that Tony Stark pulled off in Infinity War.
Means get lost, Squidward.
Then she threatens to turn him into a hand puppet, which I don't think I need to explain the logistics of.
Nah, we're good.
Great. So Squidward says that he can take Kara to Krem, but she has to wear a bag over her head. She obliges, given that she has X-ray vision, and it's identical to the way that Clark's vision was depicted in Superman. Kara gets duped again, and Squidward drops her off on Barenton. Now, this planet is from the Woman of Tomorrow comic. Kara explained that it was originally created as a sort of prison for her cousin. This planet is orbited by a kryptonite green sun, which drains the powers of Kryptonians and slowly kills them. Superman was only able to last 45 minutes until the Justice League came to rescue him, which Kara easily beats that record. Though unnamed, this planet may have first appeared in Superman 155, where a similar green sun planet depowered the Man of Steel. Now, while fading in and out of consciousness, Kara remembers her arrival on Earth. When Kara landed, her pod crashed near the Fortress of Solitude in Antarctica. Now, while Kara's arrival on Earth taking place after Clark is certain, where her pod lands has always differed in the comics. Originally, it was far out of Metropolis and then changed to Gotham City, and then finally Siberia following the events of Flashpoint. After Clark greets her, she asks, to which he replies,
I don't speak Kryptonian. I never Shoot.
I love this whole interaction. Depending on the continuity, Clark either doesn't learn or understand Kryptonian until a bit further into his Superman career, like in Byrne's Man of Steel miniseries. And when he does know it, he speaks with an American accent. Well, and look, before I continue calling it Kryptonian, Con Langer, David J. Peterson, and Jesse Peterson created a new version, Sa and Krypton, for the DCU. Peterson is also credited with creating the spoken Dothraki and Valyrian languages for Game of Thrones. So the level of familiarity between Clark and Kara also differs here than from comic canon. In her first appearance, Kara wore the S symbol so Clark would recognize her as family. Then, later down the line, after her first reboot, she expected Clark to become a baby and she became hostile when Superman confronted her. Something we really enjoyed about this movie was how human the dialogue feels. Even though these two are meeting under wild circumstances, Clark has a very human reaction to not being able to communicate with his cousin.
I wasn't raised there, so I wasn't raised there. Why am I talking louder?
And when he tries to help her out of the pod, Krypto lunges at Clark.
Let me help you.
It's Krypto's fault, Nini.
So it seems like their beef goes way back. Another note I loved about this scene is despite Clark knowing that Kara can't understand him, he continues to make sure that she is comfortable. It's similar to his actions in the movie, how he would take a moment to reassure each person that he saved.
Deep, slow breaths, ma'am. You're gonna be fine.
Clark tries to connect with her by rambling about things he likes, like bowling, which is probably a reference to this scene from Superman 3.
Here you go, Ricky. You give it your best shot.
He also warns her about her powers kicking in, which is another nod to the comics. In Supergirl 2011, when Kara first came to Earth, all of her powers immediately kicked in, causing her to freak out and nearly destroy the Great Wall of China. Clark then sets her up in an apartment in Metropolis with the Daily Planet building visible from outside her window. She asks, how can this become home? Again, restating the thesis of this film. Outside, she can hear all of the hustle and bustle of Metropolis because of her super hearing kicking in. Now, we have seen this in other Superman iterations where Clark first gets his super hearing.
I can hear everyone. And Jimmy, they have problems.
Kara puts on her headphones to block out the noise, and the song Care by Hana Vu plays diegetically. Care is about hoping that someday I'll be fine. Right now, everything is too much for Kara. Ignoring the literal noise outside, her home planet is gone, her friends and family are gone, everything she once knew is erased, but somehow, she'll be fine. Back on Barrington, Ruthie again follows after Kara and drags her into a cave to shield her from the poisonous sun. In the comic, their time on Barrington really gave Ruthie time to shine during their journey. Because Kara was out of commission, Ruthie had to fend off all of the dinosaurs and monsters that attacked the two during the day. Unfortunately, there are no giant dinosaurs in this film, which screenwriter Anna Nogueira said was the hardest part to cut from the script. Ruthie gives Kara her super suit, trying to remind her to stay strong and to fight. But Kara doesn't feel super right now and really starts to worry about Krypto. It's Ruthie's moment to snap Kara out of it, and she tells her, hey, don't freak out, which is what Kara said to her earlier when they first embarked on their adventure. Ruthie continues to soothe Kara, telling her, you're not always nice, but you're kind, which is similar to her mother's dying wishes for her to be good. She didn't always have to be nice, but she had to be good and kind and choose to do the right thing. Although she's not fighting any pterodactyls, Ruthie still has a moment here to show off her own talents both physically and later emotionally. Now when Kara asks for water, unlike in the comics, Ruthie does go to fetch some. However, this proves to be a mistake when she gets captured by one of the brigands. They bring her onto the ship where we meet up with Lobo. He and Ruthie discuss revenge and its ethics, with Lobo encouraging Ruthie's quest for vengeance. It's almost like Lobo and Kara are the devil and angel on her shoulder, trying to see what path she'll choose to take. Meanwhile, Kara is still woozily fading in and out, and the yellow sun begins to rise. She remembers the words of her father, her mother, and her cousin when he first showed her the supersuit. Now, like we talked about in our Ending Explained video, when James Gunn was designing the supersuit for Superman, he reasoned that the trunks needed to look ridiculous so people would know he was there to help. Otherwise, they would be afraid of this almighty god alien from space. So, when Supergirl finally regains her strength, she practically becomes the sun flying over the Bonnie Prince Charlie, much like her cousin, and she's finally embraced wearing the suit and becoming the symbol of hope. So Kara then kicks some brigand ass before she's taken down by Krem's kryptonite arrows, which is slightly different from the comic. There, they had enough kryptonite to embed into chains to hold Kara down, as well as enough for one kryptonite bullet. However, this opens up a lot of opportunities for the DCU. Last we heard in Superman, there was no more kryptonite left on the planet. But if Krem is able to obtain some, and it was naturally occurring on Krypton, that means that there is some left in the galaxy somewhere. This could have a big effect in Man of Tomorrow if when Lex and Superman go up against Brainiac. If Lex Luthor's in space, that means he would potentially have access to more kryptonite, which we talked about in our Ending Explained video. Now, in the comic, when Kara is overpowered by the brigands, her horse/former lover... What? Yeah, so Comet the horse was once a centaur named Biron, who ended up falling in love with the sorceress Circe, who we saw in Creature Commandos. A very, very long story short, he was turned completely into a horse, which Supergirl had as a pet for a while. Then he was turned into a human and very briefly had a romance with Supergirl. Look, it was the 60s, man. Anyways, in Woman of Tomorrow, Comet comes to Supergirl's aid, but here it is Lobo. He rides his space hog around the ship as Kara whips a chain around, knocking down a bunch of brigands to the ground. This also gives us our second wonder of the film, and I have to say, the action in this movie was pretty great. Woman of Tomorrow isn't by itself a very action-heavy story, so we were surprised that every fight had its own memorable, unique moments. Now, during the big final battle, several of the smaller tanks get thrown around. Kara and a couple of brigands get thrown onto one, with Krem and Ruthie on another. Now, when the tank Kara's on gets knocked into the water, we see her heat vision work full force, blasting a geyser of water out of the lake. I really enjoyed how much Kara differentiated between using her powers throughout this film. Clark used a lot of punching in Superman, but Kara mainly alternated between using heat vision and brute force by flying at people. It's interesting to see that even though they have practically the same power set, they opt to use them differently. Kara then flies up toward the sun to heal as Krem and the other brigands begin to close in on Ruthie. Kara is quickly able to rescue the girls trapped in the Bonnie Prince Charlie before flying back to Ruthie's side. Now, this entire fight is set to Kelty Gray and the Kid Motel's cover of The Middle. The song is all about giving yourself a chance to find your purpose. It might take some time, but in the end, everything will be all right. All right, all right. And this scene was just so cool. It felt very cathartic. The song is very mellow, but it's played over an explosive action scene. Kara is straight up murdering these child traffickers as a soft piano tune plays over the fight. It's complete tonal dissonance, and yet I think it works because that's who Supergirl is. She's all rough and hardcore around the edges, but she's a symbol of hope all the same. Everything will be all right because she's a hero and she's here to fight for you. Now, as for the rest of the ending, Ruthie's choice and what's next for the franchise, we covered all of that in our Ending Explained video, which is up right now on the channel. So guys, those are our thoughts. Are you excited for more of the Super Family? What was your favorite part of the movie? Do you think the critics are wrong? Big shout out to Lee Mazzio who wrote this video. You can let us know what you think down in the comments below or in our free to join Discord server. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.